darkening the light, so I guess that's my cue. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Sarah Abosh Jacobson. I am the Barbara Rabin Chief Education Officer here at the Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum. And I want to thank you for joining us for our 2024 Spring Break Survivor Speaker Series, and today is the inaugural talk. Today you will hear from Ms. Rosian Zerner, who will share her experiences in the Kovno Ghetto and during the Holocaust, and I think probably a little bit of some of her experience after as well, as a hidden child in Lithuania. Before we begin, I would like to thank our community partners for the Spring Break Survivor Speaker Series, the Dallas Mavericks, the Legacy Senior Communities, SMU Human Rights Program, Southwest Jewish Congress, and we really couldn't do these kinds of programs without your help, so thank you so much. We also would like to extend a special welcome to our board members, and volunteers in the audience. We couldn't fulfill our mission without you either. If you are interested in becoming a museum member, if you're not yet a member, please visit our website, dhhrm.org, to learn more. Or you can also go stop at the front desk on your way out today, and they can help you as well. In just a moment, Rosian will share her story with you. Then we will have time for questions and answers. If you're joining us in person today, you should have received a card and a little golf pencil on your way in. So please feel free to write any questions you might have for Ms. Zerner on that, and we will be around after her remarks to pick those up. If you are joining us from home, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to type in your questions and submit them, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. I would also like to ask you, because you're adults and the kids are better at this, to please turn off your phones or put them on vibrate. Please check and make sure that you've done that, because it's distracting for a speaker when they're trying to tell you their story. And please do refrain from recording the presentation. We are recording, so you will be able to watch this online or another version of this online, but please don't record yourselves. We will get that up on our YouTube channel in the coming days, so you'll have access to that. And now it is my tremendous pleasure to introduce you to a Holocaust survivor and also a friend, Rosian Zerner.
I would also like to give thanks. I would like to give thanks to the museum for the meaningful mission that they're fulfilling here. I would like to thank all the volunteers and the staff for making it happen. I would like to thank my friends who are here. And most of all, I would like to thank the students who are here. You're the future and you matter. And you're here to witness somebody who is the last generation of survivors who were actually eyewitnesses to the Holocaust. So when you witness somebody like that, you also become a witness. And when you become a witness, you have responsibilities. Responsibility to counteract the denial with truth. You can become the champion of truth. You can become the warrior for truth. You can live the truth, and you can spread the truth to those who need to know it. So I really appreciate that you're here, and I want to be able to answer all your questions afterwards, should you have them. I was born in Lithuania. It's probably the largest of the Baltic states. However, it fits into Texas 10 times, so it's not very large at all. It has the same population as Texas. The entire country is about 29 million people, and it has like they boast 6,000 lakes. Some of them are puddles, and they have the first university in Europe and the last country to give up paganism for Christianity. It has many, many uh, firsts. The language that is spoken is the most ancient spoken in the world. It's based on Sanskrit, and it has a culture where um, it was overrun by every country, it seems, that is neighboring, from the Swedes to the Poles to the Russians to the Germans, many times. I was born at the wrong time there, and the Russians occupied Lithuania first, and then the Germans came afterwards. And let me give you a little picture of what it looked like before. Kaunas, Lithuania used to be the capital there. It's now Vilnius. And this is how it looked when I was born, a long time ago. It is a very quaint, medieval kind of a city. And if you can see the map up there, it's very, very small. But at one point, it ruled Europe with Poland all the way to the Black Sea. So the Russians even made their seat in Lithuania because they thought it was a much more intellectually and appropriate for them. The Lithuania was also the seat of a great Jewish learning. I don't know if you know about the Vilna Gaon, but that was an answer to Hasidism and to so many other ways, and pilgrims still make journeys to Lithuania for the grave. They also make journeys for the Black Madonna, which is in Lithuania. It has a very, very vibrant Catholic community now there. This is life before World War II. I was born into a privileged family. Like, see in the middle, you have a 1935 Ford, and the license is very low because there were not too many cars in Lithuania. On the left is my mother with me. On the right is my father with me. And there I am with a book. I was reading very early age, and constantly all the photographs seem to have a book in it that they've saved. And life was good. We had vacations on the dachas. We had trips to Paris. My mother, who was a student of piano in Paris, could never practice because when the war came out, the concerts were not allowed for Jews. But after the war, she became the concertmeister of the Lithuanian Opera because she was very talented. My father was an attorney. He had a soccer player. He was also trained in the military, and he had a revolver because of that. In the military school, they gave him one, and that in a way saved his life. Later on, you'll hear about him. And then the Soviets came rolling in with their tanks, and on the left is one of the few photos I have from before the war in front of my grandfather's apartment complex. And I'm smiling, and if you see that coat, I was wearing it in many photographs during the war because I didn't have anything else. And here come the Nazis. If you go in the upper right, you see Hitler marching into Lithuania and everybody welcoming him. On the left, you see one of the 40 synagogues that were there and the rubble that was there after the war. On the right, you see a horror scene where, just blocks from where I lived, in a garage, some Lithuanian collaborators who were Nazis rounded up Jews and killed them with hoses of water that they pumped into their mouths, and some exploded internally. But what is also something you should notice is that the crowds are gathered and some of them are smiling. Lithuanians collaborated quite readily with the Germans. Even before the Nazi occupation, 150 villages became Judenfrei, which means no more Jews there. And they did things like cut off the head of a rabbi, put it in a window, burn people in synagogues, and it was a horrific time in our humanity. And as you can see, they're welcoming the Nazis quite readily in the photograph. And then we were incarcerated in the Kovno Ghetto. The Kovno Ghetto became a concentration camp. It was named Cohen, but we didn't know actually what was happening. Before we were interned, my grandfather was taken prisoner, and they said that he was tortured and humiliated before he was murdered. My grandmother, who was elderly like I am, went to a bread line and forgot to wear the yellow star, and everybody was supposed to wear a yellow star if Jewish. And a neighbor denounced her, and she was never seen again. And then suddenly we were told we have to immediately go to the slum area of Kovno. Bless you. And the reason wasn't given. We just knew that we were being evacuated from the city, and everybody was allowed to bring just very small amount of possessions. And my mother, I remember, she brought this huge ficus plant, and that froze immediately the moment we came there, because it was one of the coldest winters on record in Lithuania. And we were given a space about 10 by 10. And of course, no running water, no sanitation, no heat. And of course, that plant died within a day. But we didn't have very many other things there. The ghetto was something that we couldn't understand. We didn't understand what was happening outside. Our ghetto was one of the first that was established, and we didn't know there was a policy of murdering all Jews in all of Europe. That was unimaginable for anybody to understand. And so we were just wondering what was happening. They established two ghettos, a larger one where we were in, and a smaller one where they had the hospitals and some other facilities. They would rule by fear, and we trusted. We didn't know what was going on. They would ask like for 700 intellectuals to come forward, and everybody would want to come because they figured they would have a special place, and none of them were seen again. Then they would have a what they would call Dikosektion, where everybody was forced to come to this one place and stand from 4 o'clock in the morning on until a selection was done. Some of you might have seen the movies where the ones who could be workers go to one side and the other ones who were dispensable would go to the other. And again, they were killed. There was a shooting place not too far from where we were living, and we could actually hear some of the bullets uh, reaching the murdered ones. It was a horrific time, and we couldn't understand. But my parents realized that the children and the elderly would be the most vulnerable. And when you look at the Kovno Ghetto, you see even those toddlers were required to wear the yellow star. This little boy with the soup was just about my age. I was 5, 6. The ones on the left is friends visiting somebody, other friends in the prison, and the water well that we had for everybody is on the right. So my parents did something heroic, actually. They were my first rescuers. What they did to save my life was to risk their life again and again. They dug a hole under the barbed wire that surrounded the Kovno Ghetto by timing the guards, by timing the searchlights and dogs, and doing this minute by minute before they could be discovered. It was painstakingly, took some time, and then one day the hole was big enough for a 5, 6-year-old to go through. I was pushed through it to the other side. My father's secretary was waiting there for me, and we ran after she took off my yellow star across the river, and suddenly I was free without my parents, not knowing what was happening, and I was free. Her picture is the one up on the left, and I'm grateful to her, but she couldn't keep me because I was crying all the time. I didn't know what to do, and she didn't have children, and everybody was denouncing each other during those days, and nobody was really safe, and she couldn't possibly keep me. But she gave me her name. I had a false name during the war, and she pretended she was my illegitimate mother so that I could be hidden in the countryside to avoid her shame. And the countryside was my haven. It was, you see the group picture on the bottom right? That is the one where Lida, my main rescuer, saved all these other people. I'm the one with the not so happy face in the upper left of mine, right on yours. And my head shaven because of lice, and it was just growing out. And the others were other rescuers I had, because it takes about 12 rescuers to save a child, because we constantly had to move and move the moment the suspicion started. And have an extra child in your home does raise suspicions. So in the upper picture are the 2 Natashas and Rivka, my mother's friend. They were Christian Scientists, and they were also persecuted. And they wanted to do what is righteous, and they saved me by hiding, and my mother sometimes, and some others. The one picture below is another rescuer of mine, Helene Holzmann. She was a German, and she had married a Jew, and he was killed immediately because he had one of the most prestigious gathering places in his bookseller home. And then her daughter went out and became like a flower child and could go up to Nazis and say, hey, do you know that you're doing something really wrong? Don't do it. Of course, she was never seen again. So Helena decided she would save other children, and I was one of the fortunate ones that she took in as well. A book has been written that she wrote that became a award-winning book in Germany. I'm in it, and also for that. Um, and here I am in hiding. The farm on the right is where Lida was, and that's me when I went back to visit. Obviously, I'm grown up there, and the laundry is hanging. It was not a fancy farm, but we had enough to eat. We had, I became a shepherdess and picked apples and became a farm person at the age of maybe 7. And the one on the left is a picture of me that was chosen by the United Nations for their Day of Remembrance in 2013 to become a poster child. And the reason they chose it was that even during the atrocities of those days, there were some that were smiling. And of course, I'm in the same coat. um, that was an amazing experience. The event was in Paris, and that picture was on the stage through the entire thing. The leaflets were full of my picture. I was told it was in the elevators and corridors. They didn't invite me. And so that was astounding to me because those were not good times. And they saved a painting of mine that I did during those days, and I continued to paint in my life and became an artist in many mediums. And here we are, liberation by the Soviets. This is what they found. Destruction, corpses. The small ghetto was destroyed first. They burnt down the hospital with all the patients, doctors, visitors in it. And then they completely emptied it of Jews. The larger ghetto where we were in was the second one to be destroyed. And you can see some of the buildings that were razed practically to the ground. People were hiding. They were fumed out with fire. People were running and they were shot at. And when the Soviets came, the upper right is what they found. My parents had also escaped. And I keep saying that my life is so full of miracles. My life has been given back to me from my birth again and again. And the fact that in Lithuania there was an intact family like my mother, my father, and I was truly a miracle. Lithuania is a country that is most Jews were killed proportion to their population. It's a dubious figure. They don't know the figures exactly. So they say that only about 4% survived. So you're looking at a 4%er. And my mother escaped by just walking out of the ghetto one day with her work detail. And she took off her yellow star and pretended to be a French woman. She was able to hide as a widow of a Frenchman who was killed in battle. And she kept running also and hiding in different places. And she actually visited me once She visited me once and gave me the only toy that I had throughout the war, and that was a little doll that she put together with scraps of wool. I cherished that doll until it disintegrated. It was like my wonderful, wonderful reminder of a family life. My father was saved by Fritz Zimmermann. I know the name so well because we tried to find him after the war. He was the boss of my father in his work detail, and he couldn't understand this war. Here, the Germans were taught that the Jews were subhuman, that they should be should not be part of this earth. And he comes and he listens to Yiddish, which is based on German, basically in the Eastern. He sees lawyers, he sees composers, he sees inventors, and says, "What is going on?" You know, he just couldn't understand this war. So one day, he barreled into the ghetto with his truck, took my father, whom he liked, and just deposited him outside the ghetto. So my father went to another ghetto, the Kovno Ghetto, because from there he could go and fight. He said that he knew that there was a plan to kill all Jews, and he didn't want to go down without fighting. He had the revolver from his military school, and he went into the woods to become a partisan. You might have seen some of the movies about how they lived and how they were hunted also in the woods, but he survived. So, in a way, we are very, very special in Lithuania, having all three of us survive. And I'm so grateful that I live my life in gratitude now for all the miracles that were given to me. I can't thank enough because I've had a very good life, especially in America. So, after the war, we decided to leave Lithuania because the Russians didn't know what to do with a Jew who was in a high position. They gave him first back a lot of responsibility, and so he became known. And I was told they had a meeting about him at the Politburo in Moscow, but we didn't wait. We escaped illegally, and you see the trajectory in the map where we went through Poland, through, well, in Hungary, we ended up in prison because what we did is we kept speaking Lithuanian in each country while having false passports going from one place to the other. And nobody spoke Lithuanian in the world. It's a small country, and Lithuanian is very complicated. But somebody found us on the way to Hungary, so we ended up in prison in Hungary. My father managed to get us out as usual. He was an amazing person in some ways, and always made money, always made things work somehow. And then we ended up in a displaced persons camp in Austria. Austria was divided in those days, and we were in the British sector. And there are some British soldiers fooling around with me. They're probably missing their own children. And on the bottom left is my mother in the middle of playing the accordion in the displaced persons camp. Always music in our house. And upper left is my mother, my father, and I on the run again, but out of Lithuania. And we landed in Italy. Italy was one of the places where illegal ships were going to Israel, and we had family there. My mother's family left the day after I was born. They just wanted to say hello, and then I went to Israel. So we had actual family there, and we thought we would go to Israel, but it was almost impossible. The ships were intercepted, and people were put into camps again in Cyprus. It was very difficult, to say the least. So we lived in Italy for 6 years, and that was one of my first stable places, actually, since the war. I had, I went to school. I did 1 year and 3 because I didn't speak the language again, and I was admitted to the La Scala Opera House, which you see on top, as one of the first foreigners to do ballet school 7 days a week. And it was a very stable life for me. My father and I went Sundays to a lake nearby. But when we first came to Italy, we had nothing. We slept on cement floors. We had very little to eat. And the Israelis had created a haven for children in a place called Shezopoli in Silvino. And so they sent me there because they had actually meet once a week. And as you can see, there were 700 children in the same position as I was. Many were orphaned, and many went to Israel and founded a kibbutz. After that was disbanded. The place is a museum now, but you can see 700 people at morning before going to breakfast. And the circled one over there is me in a show. We made costumes out of sheets, and it was also something that would give me hope that there's another way to graduate from that, and we did. Here, we're already on the way. These are passport pictures for my mother, my father, and my little brother. I call him little still, but he's like 70 now. And but he was born 12 years after I was, because if you had a child in the ghetto, or you were pregnant, you would be immediately killed. So he was our wonder child afterwards. He was Italian. I was Lithuanian. My father was Lithuanian. My mother was German. So we are a typical Jewish family. And I am on the right side on the SS Independence coming to the United States. And I had my 16th birthday on the ship. I remember it very well because the captain gave me a party, but my parents were so strict I had to be back in my room at 10 o'clock. So it didn't work. And here I am in America. My family's on the right. I'm on the Columbia campus where I went to school at Barnard. I'm in a show at Barnard on the left. I am with my family on the bottom left on Cape Cod, and the whole bunch of us there on my 80th birthday. So now you got to meet my family. One of my sons lives in Dallas, and I came here 10 years ago and love it here. So he's the redhead on top on the right. And my other son, obviously grown up, he has 2 children of his own. And they put down my legacy. So on the upper left, I'm doing a speech with the National Guard behind me because I speak as a measure of gratitude, and it's my way of being of service so that the truth is known and that you can take something home that will enhance your view of what is right and what is wrong. On the bottom, I am with Hiram Bingham at the Rotunda in Washington. I did many things to give back because I had blocked out my childhood completely. I had to go back to Lithuania to retrace my steps. I was like almost like if you cut off an arm, you're not whole. And my childhood was my arm, and I was making the same mistakes over and over again. I had to do something. So I went back, and when I returned, I started giving back. I became very active, honoring the victims, contributing to the survivors, and thanking the rescuers. The one with Hiram Bingham is a stamp that I participated in for his father, Hiram Bingham IV, who saved probably about 3,000 people because he did his signature as a consul in Paris, and gave exit visas for people who were needed to be rescued. So that was one of the ways of doing it. The one in the middle is when I received a citation from the governor of the Massachusetts, where I lived until I came to Dallas. And that was the first citation ever given to anybody like that. It was given for the amount of volunteering I was doing, and I really put my life into it. Well, everybody knows the bottom left with St. Louis. I participated in marches and everything else when I came here because justice is justice no matter what. And the upper right is again Kaunas became the culture city of the European Union last year. And they chose me to be, again, a poster child in some ways. They had me on tote bags. They had me on murals. That's a murals of mine. And the irony doesn't escape me. I mean, first they want to kill me, and then they put the posters on. It just doesn't make any sense. So, and there are many other things that I've done that I am happy because I've been of service and I was able to do what my conscience tells me to do. And it also shows how the continuity of Jewish life doesn't stop, because my mother lived to 101, I'm 88, I have 2 sons, they have 2 children each, and Hitler lost, so... So I feel privileged being with you here today, and I hope that you know that everybody can contribute, not just people who were in the Holocaust, and that in Judaism we must remember, it's called Zachor. We also have Tikkun Ilam, which is making it a better world, and that is part of my mission as well. And I just want to thank you for being here today to help me fulfill that mission. And I leave you with the most spoken word in the Hebrew language in Israel, which means shalom. Shalom is peace, hello and goodbye, but also peace like in the world and in your hearts. So, and this, please read it for yourself and take it home and realize the meaning. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please come up, I'll stay. Okay.
we will collect questions, and Rosian and I will answer them from here, and then Rosian, I think, will stay a little bit after to speak to any of those who would like to hear from her.
Ooh, my throat.
Okay, so this question came from online. Rosian, your parents survived and you were reunited with them after the war, which, as you said, was very rare and extremely lucky for Lithuanian Jews. How did they find you, and do you remember your reunion?
Oh, yes, I do. And my mother knew where I was. My father found my mother, and then we all reunited after the war, but we were not the same anymore. We all had the scars to show, and it was a very difficult reinventing ourselves as a family, but it was wonderful to have family.
Okay. Were you able to reunite with your rescuers later in life, and do you know what happened to them after the war?
Yes. We sent them packages. They loved coffee. They loved coffee from America. And we bought a piano for one of my Leskos, Rita, so she could have a profession. And I went back about 2 or 3 times myself to thank them, because how do you thank somebody for giving you life? What is good enough? What's enough? And one of Lita, who had the farm, was actually exiled by the Russians because she was a landowner, a capitalist. And the others were just led real lives. I mean, they were just ordinary people who became extraordinary through their deeds. But after the war, they went back to their professions and they became Lithuanian citizens, doing the best they can to live their life as righteous. And they're all listed now in Yad Vashem, where the righteous are being listed for their good deeds.
When did you begin to share your story, and what made you decide to do so?
Well, yeah, as I mentioned, I went back to Lithuania to reinvent myself, and then I realized I have to give back. I mean, my life was given back to me, and I needed to see what I can do in my short, long life. And I realized that I could make a difference, because there's so much denial, so much misrepresentation, so much lies, outright lies in the headlines. And by being here with a witness that is an eyewitness, you realize that that is not the world we live in. That governments, organizations, people have agendas, and they use any possibility to have those agendas work for them. And the Jews are like the canary in the coal mine. They go first, and then when they stop singing, then the miners know that they shouldn't go any further. But as you read, it's not the Jews, it's the world. So be prepared.
Rosian, did your father ever share details with you about his experiences as a partisan?
That was very difficult. They wanted to protect me from the memories, and they would have their friends from those days in the house, and they would talk freely with them, but I would never be part of that until we gave my father a typewriter. Remember typewriters? Yeah. And he started typing his memoirs, and then we realized just what what this was all about, and I was able to convince him to go with Spielberg on the Shoah memory uh, tapes and so forth. But it was a struggle.
I have a couple more questions, but first I wanted to share with you that an online guest wanted you to know that she is watching. Her granddaughter adopted you for her bat mitzvah project, and they're watching you right now from Boston.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it's an online viewer who's watching with her granddaughter, and her granddaughter adopted you for her bat mitzvah and is watching you from Boston.
My goodness. We're talking Massachusetts and California and Texas.
Yeah, this one's from Boston, so Massachusetts.
My love to you all.
Okay. How was your family able to keep your photographs throughout the war?
That was very special, actually, because when my mother's side went to Israel after I was born, my parents kept sending them photographs, and that's the only way that they were saved. And not too many people have that privilege to have photographs. And in a way, you know, memory is very, very sketchy. The photographs kept us on track a lot. So, yeah, these came from Israel after the war, actually, to get back into our family fold. And now we have a family collection at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington that can be accessed, including the musical scores of my uncle, Edwin Geist, who was murdered and was a composer. And I'm rescuing his scores with great difficulty from Lithuania. So, yeah.
Rosian, do you have any memory from your time in the Kovno Ghetto of what like a typical day might have been for you as a child there?
Yeah. I never had very many friends because everybody was kind of huddled in their own place trying to keep warm. And we were given like 700 calories a day of what they called food. The lodgings were horrible, and the labor was, even I was in labor, you know, helping sweep and things and so forth. What I remember is the fear, the mistrust, the disbelief, the actual kind of going with the flow without knowing what the flow is. And that sort of stayed with me. And when I joined a group of survivors after the war, they seemed to have some of the same issues to deal with as well. But, you know, like Winston Churchill said, never give up. Yeah.
When did you learn English, and do you still speak any Italian or Lithuanian?
I blocked out Lithuanian, totally. But I speak Italian haltingly because I've been out of Italy for 60 years, 70 years. And I spoke Russian and German. German was my first language because my mother and my father were able to speak that before they married. She was, and Yiddish, of course, and some English, I guess.
Your English is good. Rosian, what happened to your extended family? Did any aunts or uncles make it out beside the extended family that was in Israel that made it to Palestine?
Nobody who was in Lithuania, but my father's brother escaped and was sent to Siberia by the Russians, and he survived in that horrible state, but he survived. And of course, the family that went to Israel. I mean, if Israel had been open to everybody during the Holocaust, maybe all those composers and inventors and politicians and everybody that was killed that now was not contributing to our society would have been saved.
Rosian, this takes us more to the present. This audience member would like to know, where did you travel after college? And can you tell us about your experiences in the U.S. before moving to Dallas?
Whoa.
It's a lot.
That's a whole lifetime.
Just the highlights.
The first part was...
Where did you travel after college?
87 countries. How can I tell you? I wanted to discover the world, and that was one of my passions. And I lived in India for 4 months and went to Israel 3 times. But the 87 countries, it's a little bit of cheating, because if you go to Brazil, let's say, you stand on the Friendship Bridge, which is 4 countries in one. So Facebook counted that in the 87. But then I went to Mexico 10 times, and I only have it once, so I didn't know how to count that. So still. And then my life after in Massachusetts was really a stable life for me, and I reconnected with myself. I've had friends that weren't leaving all the time. I had high school that was welcoming to me, and I was very popular there. I didn't start doing anything for Holocaust survivors until the year 2000, because I didn't think I was a survivor. My parents were, but not yours truly. So that was then consuming me in many, many ways. But I went to school in Newton, Massachusetts, and I graduated from Barnard in art history. And I never actually did much with that. I worked at the museum for a while, but I was always the breadwinner for my children as well. So here I am. I didn't expect to be in Dallas, but I've been very happy here. And America has given me a life of choices, and that is one of the amazing things in my life, where it wasn't always ruled by dictators, and I hope it never happens again.
So, final question. What gives you hope? What gives you hope?
If the rescuers could rescue me, there's goodness to the extent of their own lives. So hope is something that is in each one of us, actually. It's just a matter of how you express it and in which direction you express it. My hope is that you see the other as yourself, and that would make such a difference by creating love and understanding. And I hope for you and for me that this is going to be the future of the world that is going crazy now. So,
thank you, Rosian. Okay, if you are planning on visiting the rest of the museum while you're here today, please stop by the front desk. Either way, I'd like to invite you to tune in or to join us tomorrow when our speaker will be Mr. Bert Romberg, who was on the Kindertransport from Germany to England and ultimately also found refuge in the United States. And thank you all so much for joining us today. And Rosian, if anybody wants to come up and meet you, would you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so don't rush the stage, but please come up and join Rosian if you'd like to. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.